Talk to me. Yeah. Welcome everybody to another edition of Hassel's Review. And I'm not going to refer to it as Big Rob loves me to, a spoiler-ridden episode, because you know what? At this point, this has been out for 6 days. Not only has it been out for 6 days, if you hadn't watched it by now, you lost your man card. You've lost your cool card. You've lost your nerd card. It's all out the fucking window. That's right, people. We're talking about, for those of you who are still in the dark, X-Men 97. 27 years later, our favorite dirty, stinky muties are back. And I couldn't be happier. So, while we're going to review it, we won't go as in-depth as, our typical Hassel review sometimes is. But we will kind of get in the weeds a little bit. So, while we're at it, let's dig on into the old meat and taters of this situation. And man, let's kick off with the music. I mean, right off the rip, the music is pretty much the same, which brought great joy to my heart. It is a little more digitized, so to speak, I guess will be the word I'm looking for. I don't know, maybe it's just cleaner sounding now. I don't know. There's something about it that's just, it is a little different. It just sounds different. I don't know. Maybe it's not as rough around the edges. I don't know. But it's all in all, note for note, it's pretty much the same, which brought me great joy, because I'm not going to lie. And like the first episode, it literally kicks off with the music and almost pretty much 100% intro the original had, aside from it snuck the Morph and Bishop into there. And I was like, okay, cool. You still had Xavier, even though Xavier is written out of the series, so to speak. So you kick off into the first episode here. I guess the next bugaboo we need to get into before we really start getting into some things is the voice cast. A large portion of the original voice cast that is still living, they have returned. I know Beast is the same, Rogue is the same, Storm is the same, and Wolverine are all the same. I know that Gambit, the actor that played Gambit, came back. I'm not sure who he actually is voicing. I don't think he's actually voicing Gambit. I did see where the original Mr. Sinister has returned, although he hasn't showed in the series yet. He, other than a flash glimpse, he has not showed yet, but he is the main protagonist of the series this season at some point, getting around to it. And he is the same actor, which excites the fuck out of me. But aside from that, 30 years have passed, folks. I mean, nobody sounds the same as I did 30 years ago. I sound far more sexy today than I did 30 years ago, I'm going to be honest. But everybody ain't your boy. So Wolverine, he's so-so. I mean, it's a little different, and it could just be the fact that they're recording in a much cleaner, digitized, zone element. There's so much more they can do to it now than they could 30 years ago. Not that we were in the Stone Ages by any means. I'm not saying that. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just cleaner. I keep using that word, but I can't think of anything better. Honestly, it's a little different. Storm. Spot on. My God, she was a breath of fresh air. She is 100% sounding the same, and God bless her. She has just that regal, majestic voice. It's just, wow. As they said on Step Brothers, it's a combination of her and Jesus. She was a songbird of her generation, I bet. It's kind of that. So, yeah, she is great. Storm, Rogue, I apologize. It's the same actress, but for whatever reason, in the first episode, it kind of comes off as a miss a little bit. You can tell, like, they start, her and Beast both. By the second episode, I don't know if it's just they reincorporate in your brain a little better. And it's not that I haven't rewatched some of the episodes, because I've literally been watching the fuck out of the original X-Men animated series lately. Even have my X-Men t-shirt on today, guys. We excited, we pumped. But by the second episode, they either grew on me or they found their niche. Maybe by then they got back into their, they haven't voiced these characters in 30 years, aside from, some conventions here and there. And I have seen some video clips of the lady that plays Rogue, or voices Rogue, so to speak. And she sounds amazing at conventions. So, I'm not quite sure what happened in that first episode. Maybe it's the way they were directed. Not quite sure, but there's something off a little bit. One thing I will say, we will address the bug in the room, or the elephant in the room. What happened to Rogue's ass? It vanished. Rogue was a very sultry and voluptuous lady in the original animated series. I mean, let's just call a spade here, folks. They did not cut corners when it came to accentuating the ladies, so to speak. I mean, I don't know. Storm always come off very, very classy. Rogue was that little bit on the trashy side girl, and you liked it, but she had them things back there, that money maker, that she could make it clap. It ain't there now. I don't know what the fuck happened in the years since Xavier left, but I guess when he went to space, he took her ass with him, and maybe some of her knockers. I don't know. It's a little noticeable. I don't know. Maybe, and the thing is, people, you're making this for guys my age. You're not making, and gals, but it's people our age that are 40 years old. You're not making this for kids. I mean, I showed it to the Gremlin. I mean, he enjoyed it, but at the same time, they're not seeking this out. We are the ones seeking this out. So you could have kept it. It's not like we're asking you to hentai it or anything like that. I mean, God forsake, do not do that. But you could have kept her curves. So hopefully in season 2, her curves return. I don't know. I'll post a picture. I have one here. I found a great one online. It actually shows her absorbing Captain Marvel's powers. And it's like, and then you see Captain Marvel, the Brie Larson, where she has this super flat ass, and it's like, now it's explained. Could be what happened. Maybe she went back for round 2. I don't know. But it starts off in season 1, or episode 1, so to speak. It's been 1 year hence since Charles Xavier is shot to the sky, went with Alondra, and he is off doing his thing. He's getting some alien booty right now, and getting healthy. She can get him back right. So to the world at large, they think he died. The assassination that Gyrick put upon him, it killed him. That's what they know. So the death certificate comes in, so to speak, and it opens up with the Friends Humanity. Our Friends of Humanity are back, people. Those scummy pieces of turd racists. You open back up with them. They have returned, and they have got their hands on Sentinel Tech. And they got these pretty cool little blasters that are like Mega Man type shits. They look pretty good. Matter of fact, I have one of the figures here. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. This little fella right here. So they have these right here, and then there's a huge Sentinel hand also inside the base of operations. And they kidnapped Sunspot, and they were like talking about the buyer. The buyer is wanting them to get them, and they said he was going to pay $10,000 a piece for mutants, and he's going to use them for target practice. You get the feeling that's supposed to be Executioner is the buyer. However, there's a guy there with 3 slashes across his face, and I don't know if Wolverine's supposed to done got at him. Like, I mean, there is a character in the books with the same 3 slashes across his face, and Wolverine had got at his ass back in the day. He was a former part of the Weapon X program, but I'm assuming that's not him. Man, maybe, and I'm not very super familiar with the book version of Executioner, other than the fact that I just, as a teen, I thought he looked cool. He's a cool looking character. I didn't know he was a racist piece of shit at the time. I just thought he was a mutant villain. But, yeah, it's what it is. He was always visually appealing, let's put it that way. So he's there, and but he just seems to be another friend of humanity. So Storm and Bishop show up, and you get that first, Storm busting in, and she's got that voice of hers is fucking amazing. It fills the room. Bishop's there. I will say I wasn't super big on Bishop's voice. I don't know. I like the outlaw. I don't know where they went with the first time. It was almost like an outlaw western type deal. I always liked that. I mean, I'm super fine with the fact they got rid of that mullet and gave him the updated Method Man look. METHOD. Man, I'm fine with that. Super cool with that. The voice is a little lacking. I like the other voice a little better. And I'm sorry, I just do. It is what it is. But she's on enough, and they start kind of kicking ass, and you get some really cool visuals of Bishop and how his power works a little better. They utilize it a lot better this go around. He's like taking blasts and firing them back. And the next thing you know, Cyclops shows up. And you have to kind of take yourself back to where Cyclops was in the 90s, because Cyclops was the ultimate Boy Scout in the 90s. And he was like Superman for mutants, other than the fact he was not as powerful. But, they didn't always often portray him as the badass he could be. So he gets there, and, Sunspot's like, Are you another one of the bad guys? And he's like, oh no, I'm definitely the good guy. And when he said that, I mean, it's the Cyclops of the last, more so 20 years. They, from Grant Morrison on, they kind of crept in. It's like, no, you became Magneto, brother. You kind of, you went south. You very much became Magneto at various times in the comics the last few years. And like I said, I'm not up to date on X-Men right now, so I could be wrong. I mean, I enjoyed what I read in my youth. He was the man back then. But they've done a great job of making Cyclops into a badass on this show. He kicks ass, uses some very cool utilizations of his powers. I thought that was really good. They get the dub. They get Sunspot out of there. You kind of start getting incorporated back through all the mutants, that you're supposed to meet upon the way, like Gambit. And, they have a little deal there. And Jean is very much pregnant. She's about 8.5, 9 months. And so she's there, and like her and Scott want to go. They want to get out of there, but Scott feels like he needs to be there. And the professor was there. X-Men will be doing better than what they're doing now. Sucker Monster, no affiliation. But he feels like they'd be doing so much better if the professor were still there. And you get this scene where Morph comes in, and he's, morphed into Xavier, and whoever they had voice Xavier, I'm almost hoping Xavier does not return at all, because if that's the voice they're going to use, holy shit, it's bad. It is nothing. It is the Great Value version. Maybe not even Great Value. Maybe like Dollar Store version of the original Professor. It was bad, but it was kind of neat to see, the way they use Morph's powers in this. I'll be honest, I think they overplay him a good bit, because, he has shape-shifting abilities, and he can control his DNA on a molecular level, I suppose, but doesn't grant him the powers of these people he's turning into. And there are some fight scenes. There is one fight scene in particular where he morphs into Colossus, he morphs into Psylocke, it was someone else, but it almost looked as like they were allowing him to use their abilities a little bit. He morphs into various people. He morphs into a really cool looking Sabretooth at one point to try to cheer up Wolverine. Because Wolverine's all bitched out because, he knows that, Jean, when she has the baby, her and Cyclops are going to leave. And he's all boo-boo face because, Jean's leaving, even though his creepy ass was supposed to have left her in the past, when they got married. But he's still pining over her, apparently. So, Sunspot, he hauls ass, he's rebelling against him, whatever. The Cyclops is trying to get information out of him. You got inner fighting. You can tell there's, like all families, there's a rift there since Xavier. It's kind of like when the grandmother of a family passes away, if you've ever noticed, especially with Southern families. I don't know about, the rest of the United States, but most Southern families, once the grandmother passes away, it's like the glue that held the family together. You quit having the family gatherings and whatnot. It's kind of drifting apart like that. So, without Xavier there, they're drifting apart, and Scott's trying, but, there's resentment there on various ends, and so forth and so on. So they battle the Friends of Humanity a little more, and to close the episode out, you have Magneto. He shows up, and tells them, hey, he gives them the will and testament, and says that, Charles entrusted every bit of this to me. His wealth, and they point out his considerable wealth a few times. So you kind of forget how wealthy the professor is. Family money and whatnot. But considerable wealth, his mansion, and his X-Men. And boy, you can tell that just sticks in Cyclops' crawl pretty good. None of them really like it, but it is what it is. That's how the episode kind of closes out. So when the episode 2 kicks on, you get a revamped intro. You still get the same music. That's good. However, they took the professor's clip out. They add Magneto in his new M outfit. So there's that. That's added to it. And you get a couple of flashback like action scenes. There's one of Bishop doing the time spiraling with mullet. And it is an OG animation. And there's another one with Morph as well. Where he's kind of being, pestered by Sinister. I don't know. This is kind of some foreshadowing of things to come. I mean, they do touch on the fact that Bishop is a displaced time traveler at one point. You know, because Beast is tinkering with his little time device and whatnot. So all of this is kind of touched upon in the first episode. So we kind of go into the second episode, and Magneto, he's trying to redeem himself. He wants to honor Charles's final wishes. Like, if Charles entrusted all to hit this to him, then maybe it's time he move on and set up, you know, his former life behind him. So he's actually going forth, and he is saving humans, sapiens. He is saving them at various points, and people are like, holy shit, was that Magneto? And this is making news. Well, of course, the UN, they want to try him because, you know, why not? You know, he had all these former crimes and whatnot. Now that he's trying to be a reputable citizen, now it's time to hold the brother accountable. Well, before we get to that, he's actually down there, and he saves the Morlocks from, you know, the Friends of Humanity. He saves them from them. And actually, before we get into that, there was a really cool fight scene with the Sentinels in the first episode, because they go and find Trask, and it was really, really cool fight scene there. It was a backup Master Mold. But the only thing I didn't care for too much was Morph. For whatever reason, he didn't seem phased by the Sentinels. You would think, you know, there's some PTSD would kind of struck in on that. But he battled on pretty good. I'll give him credit for that. He handled it better than I would have. I'd returned from the dead because of these things. But here's what it is. So, back to where we were. Magneto is trying to do better, and like he rescues the Morlocks. He gets them out of there, and he comes back, and they're like, so was that you that done that? And he said, yes. And the first thing I was like, well, are they? He said, no, the Sapiens are alive. If that's what you're asking. He said, I'm not going to say they wasn't harmed, but they are alive, which is more than I would have done in the past. You know, brother changing a new leaf. He's turning, he's changing, he's trying to be better. Matter of fact, it's this version of him. I got to do some unboxings, but yeah. So he's like, okay, well, by the time the UN shows up, and they want to, well, okay, just before that, we got to touch on something. I said, I don't go too deep, but we got to touch on this. They do play off of the fact that Rogue and Magneto can touch one another. So any of you that were fans in the late 80s, early 90s, you know that they had some time together, shared together in the Savage Land, and then in the Age of Apocalypse universe, they were husband and wife. So they touch on that right there. They kind of, she goes to his chambers, because he tries to touch her one other time, and she gets all, well, we're not going to do that, that's ancient history. And he's like, well, how would your friends feel if they actually knew about that ancient history? So it makes you wonder just what them two have kind of done. And she was one of the people that was taking up for Magneto, like, hey, look, none of our past are squeaky clean, no matter how hard we try to clean. And, you know, and she looks at Gambit and, you know, a few others. So it's like, she was taking up for him there, and then you find out they've got some shared history, even in the X-Men 97 universe. Well, she goes to his chambers, eventually. So old Rogue is a slut. Yes, we're going to go there. She's a slut puppy. She was craving this touching of Magneto. And I'm going to say this right now. These fucking power dampening collars are everywhere. I mean, when the Friends of Humanity have them, I mean, that means everybody, they're accessible. You know what I'm saying? Why would Rogue just not get one if she could program herself? If she wanted some naughty time with Gambit, if she's in love with Gambit, why not put this power dampening collar on for X amount of time per day to have her skin time, so to speak, with Gambit, and get the nurturing that she's been craving instead of slutting it out into Magneto's room and chamber as she did. And it doesn't show anything, but they do touch, and then you get the vibe what's going on, and poor Gambit, he's out in the hallway. So if Magneto does knock the bottom out of the whole thing, and he's stirring the macaroni, so to speak, Gambit had to listen to macaroni noises. Yeah, so you put that in your mind. It was there. So, like I said, you fast forward a little bit, the UN shows, and Magneto, he willingly goes with him and says, look, if you try me in what I'm assuming is a fair trial, and it's fair, will this, you know, make you people trust me? And they were like, yes. So, he goes with them, and he's got the power dampening collar on, he's in chains, the works. Well, they're giving him the business. I mean, you can tell they're not a forgiving lot at all. They haven't forgotten. They're not just because he said he's a good guy, wanting to trust him, so forth and so on. So by the time the Fringe of Humanity show up, because, you know, that's what all racists do. They show up and pull insurrections and bullshit. So they show up and they start trying to, you know, mess things up. Well, by the time the executioner's with them, and he is the guy from the first episode with the 3 slashes across his face. And I don't know what it is with the suit, even though they explain, you know, this is a badass suit. But it made him into a badass all of a sudden, because he goes in there and he kicks the shit out of Cyclops. And I mean, he kicks the shit out of Cyclops. I mean, he's just like pounding him in the face. He's putting the business to him. Pretty good fight scene. And he has this cannon, and he told him, so look, I got one shot with this. So we got to make it. And he's intending to shoot Magneto with it. So it's kind of like a sniper rifle. So you're like, what's this going to do? You really don't know. Is it aimed to kill? What? Well, when this happens, you know, Jean, she goes to have the baby at the same time, because she like looks at Wolverine and says, he's here, and he's like, who, Apocalypse? She says, no, the baby. And she's like, oh. And he's trying to get her to the hospital, and she's tearing the roof off of things. Her powers are going out of control, understandably so. Lady in labor is no one to be trifled with. I don't know if you've ever been around one. They get a little out there, people. So yeah. So she's on the way to the hospital. So you got all these moving parts. They've done a great job of juggling this stuff. I watched this stuff twice, and even I'm like missing some things in my mind. There was so much going on. But literally Storm looks and tells Scott, hey, get out of here. You got to go. Jean's having the baby. We'll handle this. And she tells Rogue, she said, Rogue, get him to the hospital now. And he's like, no. And she said, no, me and Magneto will hold the fort here and protect the judges and the UN and all this. And they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're going to take this collar off. Storm looks, she says, you're going to take this collar off him now, and we're going to save you. And they do. So it was a great scene with it. They go to the hospital. And, of course, you get this piece of turd doctor that won't treat Jean because she's a mutant. And he's like, you people lose your powers. I mean, they do a great deal of the touching on the racism, so to speak, which is what the book was. Stan Lee intended the book to be. It was, you know, the book was created in the 60s, so it was to, you know, touch on real world problems like racism. You know, instead of, you know, having a African-American team that was being ostracized, so a team of mutants that could look just like you, but you were still scorning them, just like, you know, unfortunately America did for so long in our own culture. So people just like us, and they treated them like shit. So here's what it is. That's what the book was originally intended to do. So the doctor's like, I'm not going to touch you because you're a mutant. Your powers will be out of control. So Scott Lee says, can you do it, Rogue? And she sucks the knowledge out of him, and they go forth and have a baby. Flash back over to the UN scene, and Executioner, he's weaseling his way through the Fringe Humanity crew, and Magneto's doing his thing. Well, by the time Executioner goes to shoot Magnus, and Storm pushes him out of the way, and it gets Storm. And I'm not going to lie, man, I got a little emotional. The boy got in his feels a little bit when I seen Storm get shot, because I didn't know where they were going with this. I was like, y'all can just kill Storm. We ain't doing this. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. Magnus didn't either. By the time, you know, he gets, Executioner gets subdued, Magneto takes him and he like puts him in crucifix style on the UN thing, and he like realizes, so he takes like the whole little area there, and they start going up into outer space. He's got the judges, the UN, he's got Storm, and he's got Executioner upside down. And he goes and gives them the business like, you know what, in the past, the first thing I'd have done was kill all of you. He said, look at what you just done. This lady was just trying to save your lives. It's the hatred, and let's say, he said, this is what Charles Xavier, and he like touches on the fact that like Charles Xavier is a better man than he. But even Charles Xavier could be wrong. Some of the tells Cyclops at one point. And when Cyclops was questioning why he was put in charge of things, like, well, you know, Xavier did it, but you know what? Xavier can be wrong too. I found this out in my younger days. You will too. So I don't know, that's some foreshadowing, so to speak, but you know, Magneto is pretty much telling me, look, I could kill you all right now, and at one point I would have, but I'm honoring the wishes of Charles Xavier, and you know, Storm is still alive, but she's been depowered. Something in the rifle depowered her. So they go back down to Earth, and Magneto gets released, so to speak, and then Beast is checking her over and trying to see what he can do for Storm, and he's like, look, whatever he shot you with is the same stuff. The power dampening collars emit a form of radiation that neutralizes the powers, and this seems to be permanent. So if that's the case, this is going to lead into a really cool arc, because depending on how they go with it, because she loses her powers in this book a very similar way, saving Rogue at one point back in the late 80s, and she goes off with Forge. So I'm hoping we get some Forge and maybe X Factor at some point where she goes off with them. We'll see, but I got a feeling it's going to lead into Sinister Report restoring her powers, so to speak. And I mean, the fact that they mention Apocalypse reminds everybody, Apocalypse did return in one of the later episodes as he stole Fabian Cortez's body. So there's so much of what can happen moving forward. And the end of the show closes out because Storm, she leaves this heartfelt letter. She's like, once she realizes she's lost her power, she has to go. And Jean's reading the letter out to the family, the X-Men. They're all in the living room, and she's reading it. And they're all like, well, she had to do what she had to do. And Morse, he's in the eye. He's like, nah, she'll be back in a week. Give her time. And then the doorbell goes off. He's like, see, she's already back. She's already tired of them normal people. And when they open the door, there's Jean Grey. Very sweaty, weak. And she falls into Morse's arms and says, I need the X-Men. So, at this point, we don't know if that's the real Jean Grey, or if the one that gave birth to Nate, because we just give birth to Cable. Is that the real Jean Grey, or is that Madeline? You don't know which one is actually going to be Madeline the Goblin Queen. So there's a lot of what ifs moving into the third episode. I don't know how much of that we're going to actually get answered this week, because I believe I'll post the episode. There's a list of the episodes online, and I want to say it kind of flashes over into something else for the third episode, unless they do a little bit. They've done a great job of jumping in and out with these two, so I don't know. Only thing I had as a negative, like I said, the voices were a little off-putting in the first episode. It got better by the second episode. I was in tune. There's just not enough of it. I want more. I need to Netflix this in a binge watch with a bottle of whiskey. And I don't know, I might even break some damn cereal out just to feel like a kid again. I don't know. Like to have the kid and the adult at the same time watching this. I don't know. It was an amazing show. I'm gonna give it a 4 3/4 Hassels out of 5. I mean, don't get me wrong, anything can be better. You can improve upon anything. But they've done a great job all the way around. Storytelling, like I said, they made Cyclops a badass finally. And he's always has been. But they finally utilize it and show it to show he's just not some ass kiss for Xavier. So that was great. A lot of excitement, people. Man, if you're not a fan of this right here, I don't know what's wrong with you. Drop me some comments in the section. Let me know what you think. I was super pumped and excited about it. I can't. Like I said, I watched it twice now. I watched it with the Gremlin the first go around because I wanted my little bit fellow to, be able to, see what I seen as growing up. I mean, I was a teen by the time it was coming out, but at the same time, I wanted my little fellow to be able to enjoy this, and he did. He really did. But then the selfishness in me, I wanted to watch it again, with just me, so I could really enjoy it and hear the dialogue a little better instead of getting a bunch of questions that you sometimes get with toddlers, which is the fun of allowing them to watch it, So I recommend watching it with them the second go around, maybe. Be selfish. Watch it the first time by yourself. However, it is what it is. So with that being said, loved it. Like I said, drop comments. Let me know what you think in the sections below. Let's give a little love to our sponsors on Collectibles, 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Hit them up for all your nerdy needs where they do unity through community. Phantoms unite. Just like we're trying to unite, people. Hey, there we are. Themes go together. We are on Geek Network Media, and now Metal Ninja Studios. Brother, we are everywhere. Check us out on Facebook, Hassel Hutchison, Instagram, The Nerdy Man Room Show, Twitter, Nerdy MR Show, and we're on the TikTok, the.nerdy.manroom. So we're a little bit everywhere. And don't forget to show our boy Big Rob, Big Rob's House of Entertainment, and no Chinese food, a little love, as he is also on Twitter, TikTok, and the YouTube, which is where we need you to be liking, subscribing, and sharing. Hit the bell so you can get all the updates every time we drop new content. We're close to 500 subscribers. Once we hit that, we're going to give a massive giveaway away. So help us get to our goal. So until then, beware of the mutants.